Mr. Mitch. Hello, Bubba. How are you?
Nick, how are you?
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. It is 5:00. Somewhere. All right, welcome everyone. This is the May 17th meeting of the Boca Raton Airport Authority. And we welcome all our guests and the board. Just as a reminder, this is being viewed through YouTube. And so your actions and words are being recorded and projected out there. So
Is it YouTube
be
or
warned.
our website?
YouTube is what I have on my little list.
It's YouTube.
It'll be recorded and then posted on our website after the
Okay.
meeting.
But there's a link to it on our website. It'll take you to the YouTube live page.
It's live streaming on YouTube.
Yep.
Correct.
That's what I've told everyone to do. Go to
Yes.
the website.
Mhm.
Mr. Gene.
All right, so we have, let's do the roll call. Kristen.
Now,
Here.
Tucker,
Present.
Campbell,
Here.
Ms. Buck. Here. Mr. Vogel,
Here.
Mr. Coleman,
Here.
Perfect timing.
Great, we do have a quorum for the record. We have everybody here. Thank you. First item is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 19th. So you have that in your board packets.
No move.
I got a motion and a second from Bob. Any comments, questions, edits? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Agenda changes. Do we have any agenda changes?
There are none.
Public requests. If any member of the public wishes to provide a comment on any item, the time to do so is now. Please complete a public comment card, which is located back here to my right, identifying the item upon which you wish to speak, and provide it to Ms. Landers. The public comment cards are located in the back of the room. As I just said, each member of the public wishing to comment will be provided with 5 minutes to do so. The chair reserves the right to move the public comment opportunity on a specific agenda item to the point in the agenda when that item is to be considered and or extend the allotted time per speaker. So do we have any public comments? Consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda?
No, sir,
Any federal, state, or municipal input?
there is none.
All right, so our financial report. So we're going to start with the presentation of the 2023 financial report, and Randy Nobles, our secretary treasurer. I know you've looked at the detail. I got a comment.
Yep, well, I think we're gonna start with the financial report.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the audit. Just as a reminder and as reflected in the minutes, the March report was tabled last week because the revenue numbers weren't final. So we're gonna have Rob present the March report first and then move on to the April. You also should have received a revised April report with final revenue numbers for April on Monday that you proceed. If you want a hard copy of that, we'll let her know. I've reviewed, as I do every month, the final reports for both months, and everything is in order. In conjunction with the seasonal nature of fuel, those numbers are starting to go down, which is expected. So, Rob.
Thank you. All right, so for you is the financial report through the months of March ending 31/2023. Total operating revenues year to date are 3.7 million, which is 13% above budget. Total operating expenses were 2.6 million, and that was up 1.8%. And net income for depreciation was approximately 1.1 million. So on behalf of the airport management secretary treasurer, we respectfully present the March 2023 financial report in the airport.
And which was the line that changed from last month? It's the revenue line?
It would be the revenue.
Okay.
Yes.
And was that a significant change?
No, it was very minor. I don't have the exact numbers, but it's a couple hundred, I believe.
Mhm. About 200 something change.
Okay, so looking for a motion on the March 2023 financial. So Cheryl, second. Okay, any comments or other questions? I guess I jumped down a little bit, but questions on that report? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let's go to the April 2023 financial report.
Yes, thank you. We should also have the updated April 2023 financial reports. As you can see, total operating revenues year to date were 4.3 million. That is 13% of our budget year to date. Total operating expenses were approximately 2.9 million, and that's down 1.9% but to budget year to date. And net income before depreciation was 1.3 million. So on behalf of airport management and secretary treasurer, we respectfully present April 2023 financial report.
Okay, so I'll look for a motion on the April 2023. Gene?
Second.
Mitch, second. Okay. Again, any questions? Robert, any comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, then let's go to the presentation of the audit.
Yep, just a few comments, as everyone is aware, BRAA and Associates continues to be our external auditor. They completed the audit, as of the end of our fiscal year, which is September 30th, 2022. So bear in mind, we're looking at numbers as we go through this that are not 8 months old. So the audit included a review of our financial statements, including a statement of net position, changes in net position, and statement of cash flow. BRAA also audited the grant accounts to determine compliance with federal and state grant requirements for airport projects, obviously considering the nature of our grants, a very important aspect of the audit. They also audited our investments for compliance with Florida statutes. Once again, I'm happy to report that there were no findings again for the current audit year. I did review on a one-on-one the report with David Kaplivsky with BRAA last week and satisfied with the process, the results, the cooperation as one of the questions that I always ask is cooperation with staff, always excellent. From Clara to Rob and everybody else. So there is a new pronouncement, the Gatsby pronouncement that David and I discussed that took effect for the current audit year. It has to do with how long-term leases are capitalized and the deferred revenue. So David will walk us through that and through the entire report, and be happy to answer any questions as well. So David, okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Again, my name is David Kaplivsky. I'm with BRAA Associates. We're the independent auditors of the authority's financial statements. Like Mr. Noble said, I'm happy to report that this year we were able to give an unmodified clean opinion on the financial statements. This is the best opinion we can give. Like Mr. Noble said, there was a change in the accounting rules that had to be implemented this year that had to do with leases. It had to do with lease receivables as well as lease payables. The biggest impact for the authority was on lease receivable side. That is the authority as lessor. So if you look at the balance sheet, I can show you the impact of that. That's on page 7 of the report. And on page 7, you see the balance sheet. Now we've got assets, and within the assets section on the top of the balance sheet, there's a lease receivable of $60 million. And that's significantly higher than in the prior year. And the reason is because of the accounting pronouncement. And what happened is basically the accounting powers that be said, now you have to look all the way out to the end of the lease and end of all the options that you think are going to happen, and you have to net present value them to today. In the past, it was just basically whatever you're owed at the end of the year. So that number went up. But there's a corresponding liability, deferred inflow of resource, which has effect of on the bottom line, lowering that number. And that deferred inflow of resources is on towards the bottom, $58.8 million. And what that's basically saying is, yes, we have that big receivable, but the inflow hasn't happened. That's going to be happening over several years. And because of the nature of the leases of the authority, which are very long, this number is very big. But like I said, there's a wash. So at the end of the day, the bottom line is that at September 30th, 2022, the total net position was 58 million. And of that, 43 million is related to capital assets. So really, you're looking at 14.9 million of unrestricted net position, which is really more financial assets. In the next page is the payment of revenue and expense over the changes in net position. This is like an income statement. And the bottom line there is that the change in that position was $6.8 million from the previous year. And then on the next page is the statement of cash flows, which takes out all the accounting rules, and it's just cash on the cash basis. So there you can see the increase in cash in the middle of the page from the prior year was $1.2 million. Besides that, the notes didn't really change except for the note about the lease, like the leases, which is on page 6. I'm sorry, page 16, note 6, and there you get a little bit more detail about those numbers. At the end of the report, on page 20, here's our report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance. And there, as Mr. Noble said, we have a unmodified report, clean report, and then there's also reports of compliance for the federal programs and state projects, and there as well, we gave unmodified or clean reports. So with that, it's like I thank the authority once again for choosing us to be their independent auditors of the financial statements and available for any.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the action is to consider the resolution number 5/16/23 of the Boca Raton Airport Authority adopting the Boca Raton Airport Authority's financial statements, schedule of expenditures, federal awards, and state financial assistance projects, and the independent auditor's report for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2022. So I do have a motion on that. Thank you, Rich. And second, okay. No. Okay, so any questions or comments, questions of David? Biggest change is being on the how to lease. Captured in this. Okay, very good. Hearing none, and I believe staff has recommended approval of this motion as well. Okay, Randy has. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, David. Thank you to the staff. Good job on the report. Very good. Thank you. Okay, next item is the presentation. I got a lot of finance going on tonight.
Yeah.
Presentation of 2023 investment report. So Randy, I guess we'll come to
Yeah.
you again.
Yep, so Claire and I met last week to go through our investments. You know, we have quite a bit of cash, as you'll see in a minute. You know, interesting time with what's going on with banks in the fact that we're putting our money in banks. With that said, I did ask staff to add information to this presentation on how we manage investments and the Florida Qualified Public Deposits Program. And that, for those of you, I know we've talked about it in here before, is a program that provides guarantees for monies beyond the $250,000 of FDIC insurance that is normally provided to banks. And banks have to apply to be in this program. It does not, you're not automatically in because you have FDIC insurance. The banks have to pledge, and I'm summarizing the regulation. Banks have to pledge assets on their balance sheet to stand behind the deposits they have. And beyond that, there's also a risk sharing component should there be a default that is not covered by the security, where other banks that are part of the qualified public depository have to step up and put in to make up any deficiency in a default within their prorated share that they are part of the Florida Public Depository. So to me, the Florida the qualified public depository is made for times like we're in right now, that of uncertainty.
So some of these, excuse me,
Yeah.
some of these bank failures that we've been hearing about, they weren't part of this.
Not that I'm aware, but even if they were, if somebody had $10 million invested in those banks, they would be covered.
Right,
You know,
okay.
made whole. So, Rob can give you, I guess I stole a little bit of Rob's thunder here, because I think he was gonna get into the detail of the program. Beyond that, I'm gonna meet with Clara and staff again, I think next week or the following. We're gonna go through our upcoming liquidity needs and, look at our options going forward. There is a sense amongst many that interest rates are near peaking. So, we should, try to determine what our liquidity needs are going to be over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. And, money that we don't need, we should be looking at, in my opinion, if anybody feels different, we should be looking at, locking in some of the rates that are probably going to be, start to go away as we start to, feel some easing in the rate. So, but, we're going to work with staff on that. And with that said, Rob, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. So starting off, I'd like to show you the historical balances of the authority's invested funds, and this is as of April 30th of each year, listed below. Largest driving factor for the changes in our balances over the years is the timing of the authority's large scale projects. So these projects are usually grant funded, but we do have to pay for the cost upfront and then we get reimbursed. So as we pull money out for larger projects, we see them coming up, the balances will go down. If we expect that we might not have as much cash flow needs, we'll invest a little bit more. So that's why the balances are going to go up and down in ways that we can see there. So as detailed in the report and kind of seen on the last slide there, we've invested approximately, we have about 16.4 million invested, and that's an increase 26.8% from 2022. This is attributed to mainly the grant receivables that we've had from the taxway widening project and airport road. It's also due to some of the increase in rent that we've had due to just annual adjustments and the release we went into the Atlantic, and the interest rates that have steadily increased over the last year as well. We have approximately 11.1 million of airport funds invested in CDs, and 3.8 million are kept in cash or cash equivalents, which are now money markets for us. And we have approximately 1.1 million kept in security deposits on various leases. We do anticipate the end of the fiscal year funds being about 16.6 million. So this slide kind of covers some of the QPD that was just discussed. So in order to maximize all of our possible protections, we do invest in QPDs, and we are required to do so as well. So the QPDs, they collateralize the public deposits after they receive new CDs. Each month, the QPDs are required to compute their average daily balance, and then they can use that to determine what level of collateralization they need. That's determined by the CFO of the state of Florida as well. They report their levels, their collateral levels by the 15th of the month. And so that way the state is aware of how much they're needing, and that backs up all the deposits they receive per month. So it's an ongoing, it's not just like annually, so it adjusts to keep upward and down with the needs. Let's see, our responsibilities, obviously, we're required to invest in these QPDs. But then we also have to complete and retain a form that just acknowledges that we are investing in them and they are in fact QPDs. So we get that every time we open a new account, even if it's for the same bank, we'll have multiple for each bank, for the same bank, even for each CD. And then every year, by November 30th, we do reports to the state of Florida, and it has all the actual balances and the amounts and QPD forms and things, and they check on that. So moving on to our interest, this slide shows the estimated interest income for fiscal year 23, and it's compared to the actual historical interest income values for fiscal years. As we would expect, the interest rates and the account balances are kind of the driving factors for the changes there. Obviously, interest goes up, interest income is going to go up, and then the balance goes up. We're going to get. So year-to-date interest income is 129% above budget, and it's projected to be approximately 504,000 by year end, which is a 152% increase in the budget. Based on the airport's current investment schedule, which you have in a copy of in the investment report itself, our average annual rate of return is approximately 3.44%, which is up 3.17% last year. So the increase in interest revenue is, like I said previously, attributable to increased interest rates and the higher balances that we currently have in our investment accounts. So on behalf of the Secretary Treasurer, the manager respectfully presents the 2022 investment report to the Airport Authority, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll start with a question, then we get to a resolution afterwards. But go ahead, Cheryl. Yeah, it's
Really
a lot to talk about.
quick question for you. What is the window of opportunity for us to lock in rates before things start?
Well, rates have not started to go down
I know.
yet, so we're probably, I think it's something we need to look to do over the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
But, first we need to, try to forecast what our cash flow needs, because,
But it's not 4 to 6 months.
I think it's a shorter window, and so,
The rates are about 4.95% now, I'm saying.
yeah.
And doesn't part of this rely upon what happens with the deficit? And I mean, if they don't settle that in the next couple of weeks, as they're saying.
Yeah,
Interest rates are gonna like skyrocket or
yeah,
something.
so,
Yeah,
yes. Interestingly, as you talk about the deficit, people talk about the US defaulting on debt and everything. Well, our alternative to being in the Florida Public Depository is to invest in direct obligation of the federal government. And I'm not sure if it includes agencies as well. or
It's
just
treasury bills. Mhm.
Okay, just direct obligation. So, that is our other, alternative that, but, we generally, stuck with CDs because they're more flexible. Not having to worry about what the market's going to do because you're not getting
Yeah, sure.
So the 3.44%, that is return on the total portfolio. So it's not just CDs, but it's also cash.
that's correct, right, Rob?
Yes.
Money
The
market
average.
accounts and what we have in all of our.
It's the
cash.
average of all of the invested rates of return.
It was just interesting how dramatic the increase in interest rates affected our interest income. Just last year. You knew they were going up, but
Go from 1% to 5%.
yeah.
The timing of when those the previous
And the
CDs
timing.
matured,
Yep.
So I guess
those were
timing
in
is
the
the issue,
0.4%
I
or
would expect it higher, but it's because we're locked in those much lower.
that's right. So you'll see on page page 5 has the maturity date. So you'll see some, coming up in the next couple of months, which is what we'll be just reviewing with Mr. Nobles when we meet in a couple of weeks.
All right, thank you.
The other thing that struck me based on what Randy and Robert were saying is just, are we doing everything we can to protect the investments through this QPD program, or is there some other thing we should be thinking about?
all of ours are in the CDARs, right?
Right now, we don't have any CDARs, the
We do not?
banks, currently, we do not. We'd like to have them when we can, but the banks are currently not offering them.
That's,
That would be one more thing. we
That
could
is
do.
another opportunity
It
for us, and when they are available, even though the rate might be lower, we do purchase
And
those.
why aren't they offering?
I think in talking with, we talked with TD, for example, most recently about it, and their response was that they feel that there are enough protections through the QPD program that it's not quite needed. And it may not offer the best rates, but as I mentioned, and as we know, for us, our motivation is to protect the capital. But there's a feeling among the QPDs that there are enough protections currently that they don't necessarily need to offer the CDARs.
Sounds like we're doing everything that's available to us.
The other opportunities are listed, sorry, Rob, on page, let's see, on page 2 of the report. That's the local government surplus funds and pooled investments, which generally are very, very low rates as well. Money market funds, interest-bearing time deposits, which is what we have, CDs, or as Mr. Nobles mentioned, direct obligations of the U.S. Treasury, which is another option that we certainly will explore as we go forward with our analysis.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so then I'll look for a motion to accept the 2023 investment report. Recommended by the staff.
Thank you.
All right. Now, second. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great report. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. Tenant reports and requests. Is there any tenant reports?
There are none.
All right, let's get into item number 9, executive director and staff reports. And we'll start with the noise abatement operations summary for the month of April 2023. Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Robert Pratt, Operations Coordinator. Before you is the operations and noise abatement report for the month of April 2023. During the month of April, there were 6,790 operations, which is 9% less than operations of April of last year. Jet A deliveries were down 8% compared to April of 2022, and F-gas deliveries remained roughly the same compared to last April. I saw that. There were 8 different households that filed noise concerns for the month, most of which were from the online web portals. During the month of April, Customs had 229 aircraft clearings, which is up from the 225 total aircraft clearings of April of 2022, and there were no vessel clearings for the month. These 229 aircraft arrived from a total of 24 different countries. And there were 71 after-hours clearings in the month, of which 32 occurred on days when the facility was closed. That concludes the operation report for the month of April. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Robert? Thank you very much. All right, next up is the Boca Raton Airport Authority property insurance renewal. And Christine Landers is going to present this item.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, Christine Landers, office manager. Before you is our property insurance renewal. Last year, the annual rate was $75,827.76. The renewal will continue with Lloyd's this year. The rate that was included is $116,849, which is an increase of $41,022, and this will be for the periods of May 23rd, 2023 to May 23rd, 2024. We did go ahead, I know it's a large increase, approximately 54%. We did go ahead and take a look and review the previous property insurance that we had. Going back to 2009, it was over 103,000. It did fluctuate and then drop considerably down into the 50s for a number of years and has started to go back up. We also did speak with and see some of our government entities that are similar to us, they're also seeing an increase somewhere between 40 and 80% for the property insurance. So this is right in line with what other government entities are forecasting or are seeing paying this year. Mr. Alec Blodgett is here. He's our insurance broker. He can speak to you about the procurement process and how we obtain the rate if you have any questions. We are seeking approval for the renewal for this year.
Okay, well, let's, if we have a motion to, accept the property insurance renewal, take that, okay, Mel and Cheryl, second. Okay, questions, any comments, questions?
Just because we want to hear you say it. Please tell us, go to the podium and make us feel a little bit better about this. I mean, the undercurrent at the table during the presentation was highway robbery.
Yeah.
I'm Alex Blodgett, with Blodgett Associates, located over at 3700 Airport Road. And let me just give you like a 1 minute background on how we got here. Last year especially, there were a lot of catastrophes in the US. Floods, fires, they had Hurricane Ian that hit, and the reinsurance market has gone away. They basically have said, if we're going to stay in the game, we're going to jack the prices up. The two main reinsurers are AIG, Berkshire Hathaway, and they've said if we're going to do it, this is what the price is. So a lot of the players have moved out of Florida. They've said we're not going to do business in California, we're not going to do business in Florida. So it has really shrunk the marketplace. And I don't mean just commercial, I'm talking about homeowners, any property is a real disaster right now. I think it's going to be, Ms. Bud, I think it's going to be another at least 18 months. I don't see this thing changing till hopefully 2025. And because, for example, Hurricane Ian over here, they're just now still paying out claims from that of $160 billion. I mean, it's just very difficult to come to grips with. I actually thought your insurance renewal compared to what's going on out there was pretty good. I just beat up on them one after the other. And we got 19 declines. Like 19 carriers said no, that do write insurance. And I didn't even go to Hartford, Travelers, Chubb, because they no longer write any property in South Florida. So we stuck with Lloyd's where we were. They have different syndicates, and they were by far the most competitive, and they started here, and I got them finally knocked down where they are. Most of our big property renewals are 80 to 100% premium increases.
So just like for those of us who are homeowners and we have like mitigating factors like a new roof or things like that, are there mitigating factors that the airport has that help reduce the rate of it?
Yeah, the things you kind of have going against you is like the tower's an older building. And the only market out there other than on this route would be buying wind from citizens. I don't think they would even approve the tower. First of all, the rate would probably be probably a $3 rate. Then you got to go buy other insurance on top of that. Plus they have a potential 40% assessment on it. So, and I'm not even sure we could get it approved. So there really is, I hate to say it, there's really not much out there. The roofs are a big thing, just like in homeowners. They all want, it has to be less than 20 years and it should be less than 10 years. So it's the same situation on these commercial condo buildings, et cetera. They're all going through it.
Randy?
So just so I understand, we're affected by things that have nothing to do with our industry.
Exactly.
Is what it boils down to, other disasters, hurricanes. My second question is, I think Clara mentioned when we were talking about this, that we are buying down our deductible from 250 to 100,000.
Approximately.
Is that part of the increase? I think Clara, you said that was around $11,000 or something.
Yes, right.
That's
Yeah.
included in this.
Yeah.
increase,
It's
yeah.
the same, it's baked into this amount, so that amount includes, and it drops it from 250,000 to 112,000.
I can't remember which is which, but El Nino or La Nina, anyway, the
The
good
good
one
one.
is supposed to be happening. We're in that, gonna be in that cycle starting this year. For like the next 10 years or so. Is that why you're saying that you think it'll get better in a year or two?
Well, I
Is that-
kind of go back to this, it's a little bit in a cycle. It's gonna go up here, and it's always come back down, and it goes, it's cyclical. I think that we'll see it go back down 2025. I don't think necessarily that. I think it's gonna be, these companies are getting made whole again. They should do well this year, next year. They'll pay to their stockholders, they'll have it, they'll make some changes, and that's the way I see it happen.
Okay.
And Alex, how about the changes in Tallahassee? Any of that affect commercial property like airport properties, or that focus mostly on?
Unfortunately, no, because these companies that are in Florida, they basically have said, this is what we're gonna charge, take it or leave it, and there's not. Much, they can't do anything.
Even with all the bills that were passed?
No, it's not affecting the commercial side at
Not
all.
yet. Okay.
I
any
think
other
the
questions?
industry that's really getting hit hardest is the commercial condo market, because people on a fixed budget. They have to pay their monthly dues every month. For a condo last year paid $260, is getting charged $600,000. It is being very difficult on those people, or people living east, because they can't go to Citizens because there are limits on their houses too much.
Very tough situation. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions of Alex? So we have a motion and a second. So all in favor of accepting the insurance? Yeah. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next up is item C, Airport Road Architectural Monument Signs Award. And Travis, can you talk about this? Travis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Travis Brennan, Operations Director. This project consists of an installation of two monument signs, Airport Road, one at the north end, one at the south end. Remember, this was originally bid out as part of the overall Airport Road beautification project, and this is one of the other items besides the interior wall features that were pulled from the scope. RFP was released at the end of March and closed at the end of April. The authority received 3 bids, and after the determination of ranking by the executive director on May 8th, Sign-Sations of Boca, the local company, was chosen as the highest ranking respondent. They do have extensive experience in the Boca area doing, let's say, signs for the city and FAU, so they know the permitting process and the bonuses. And Mr. Jack Glover is from President of Sign-Sations with us tonight. If you have any other questions about the installation and permitting process through them. Airport management recommends approval of resolution 5/17/23 awarding the monument fund for Sign-Sations in the amount of $176,000.
Okay, thank you, Travis. So based on that recommendation, do I have a motion to approve resolution 5/17/20? So moved. Second. A second, Randy. Okay, questions, comments, questions, Travis? Contractors. All right, I saw some pictures in our board agendas. So
Yeah,
good.
really good.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Travis. All right, next is Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program Grant for Stormwater Improvements and Wildlife Mitigation. We have someone presenting that?
I'll take that one, Mr. Chair, and if the chair would like, we can take items D and E contemporaneously, as they are very similar and both sort of interrelated projects.
All right, the record, what is E is Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program Grant for Airport Service Road Rehabilitation. So we got one for design and one for They're both designed, right?
They're both designed, correct. These are both the grants that you have seen before when you accepted the FDOT portion, which was a few months ago. So if you recall, the stormwater and wildlife mitigation project is largely aimed at these big open ponds out here that parallel the sides of the runway. It's looking to basically minimize the size of those ponds, remove some of the grading issues that are in the runway safety area, and minimize any wildlife attractants. We're also going to look at the landside ponds to see what we can do out there as well as part of the overall grant. Only the airside portion of that project will qualify for the FAA funding, but the FDOT can be applied to both sides. That grant is a little bit different than the normal funding structure. It's basically a third, and a third. That has to do with the FAA portion being part of the entitlement grant program. Every year, the airport automatically qualifies for $150,000 worth of FAA funds, and then the 50% of the non-federal half is sponsored by the Florida Department of Transportation. Normally, that's 5%. In this case, since it's a $250,000 project, we're looking at a third of that one. And then for the airport service road, this is a road that parallels those ponds, which is why we sort of have to do this in conjunction, because changes to one is going to dictate changes to the other. And that service road is approximately 10 years old. It serves as access to the control tower for security patrols along the perimeter, and also for emergency access vehicles getting to and from the this side of the airfield. It's a very narrow road, so as part of shrinking those ponds, we want to look to maximize the width of that road. It's a very tight squeeze in a fire truck, so we want to kind of give fire rescue ample space to get past if there is an emergency at the tower. That one is also using $150,000 of FAA funding, but is funded at the typical 95.5 because that project is a little bit cheaper for the design. You can roll over the federal funding for up to 4 years in a row, which is why we're able to tackle both projects in 1 year. And we'll be coming back later for the construction funds in the next budget year. But the FAA process is a little different than FDOT. They don't just require a resolution, they simply require a motion that empowers both the executive director and airport legal counsel to accept the grants. And so that is what we are requesting here, is just a motion by the authority granting Clara and Amy the authority to accept the grants when they are offered. It's usually a pretty quick turnaround of a matter of days when they do make that offer. And so we like to go ahead and get that authority in advance.
Understood. So the first, let's take them separately. You explain them both together, but separately, just for the record and the minutes. The improvement and wildlife mitigation, stormwater improvement and wildlife mitigation. I'm looking for a motion to give the executive director the ability to authorization to accept the grant funds when offered. Correct? Okay. So motion. A second. Okay, all in, any questions, comments on that?
So basically, less water means less birds,
Mhm.
which means less of a hazard for takeoffs and landings.
Correct.
That's what this. Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the next one is the improvement program grant for airport service road rehabilitation, design and professional services. We're looking for a motion to authorize the executive director to accept the grant funds when offered.
So moved.
Thanks, Cheryl. Second. Any other comments, questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you for that. Next item is item F, the request to approve the public transportation grant agreement for a financial project with the state of Florida for nav aids and airfield lighting signage upgrades. And Travis, you're going to present this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the board members, we awarded a contract to High Power Electric, one of the previous board meetings for the electrical project. This PTA consists of the construction funds for that. We've already received a grant for design and the initial services. This is the actual construction portion. We're already in the agreement with that. This would provide us with all new LED light fixtures, all new signage, runway cabling, taxiway, new regulators and vaults. Hopefully providing for an electrical savings once all installed too. Roughly, just doing the rough math, I believe we have a mixture of incandescent port signs out there now and According to manufacturer, we're almost at 80% savings over the incandescent electrical usage and a 50% of the ports. And just for our own maintenance needs and staff time, LEDs are supposed to last approximately 25,000 hours versus 1,000 for what's out there currently as far as fault life and things or replacements. The grant total for this would be $4.3 million with the state funding share of 3.4 change, with the airport share of $860,000, which is available in current budget and budgeted for previously. That being said, airport management recommends the approval of resolution 5/18/23 for PTTA for Navies and airfield language signage.
Okay, so I'll look for a motion to approve it. Cheryl, second,
Second.
Randy. Okay, any questions of Travis? Yep, Gene?
Will there be any disruption of the airport operations during the time?
Disruptions will occur nightly. Unfortunately, to do any major reconstruction work like this, we will be closing nightly once the actual project kicks off. So we'll be doing the standard Sunday nights through Friday mornings, so closing 9 p.m. Sunday night, reopening each day at 6:30 a.m. Leaving enough time for airport staff to inspect the areas and once the contractor's out and make sure everything stays to reopen. And we'll just have to, as the project progresses from phase to phase, carry notices to air missions as far as if there actually nomenclature changes, signage missing and or change in each intersection, that type of thing. But we plan on reopening each day, and just as previous projects have gone, staying open weekends, no closures.
Thank you.
So you're saying most of the work will be taking place at night?
The vast majority of all the actual airfield work will be taking place at night. There's just going to be too much equipment out there in the safety area to be able to pull cable and equipment. And some of the vault work will be able to accomplish during the daytime.
And besides the savings in electricity, I guess it puts us on the leading edge of technology for lighting and navigation aids, or is it going to be up to
All LED field with no intermixing of anything else. So this is the latest and greatest and brightest runway lights you can get. Plus, in addition to savings, they are a little more visible and a lot more uniform. One of the issues we run into with the incandescent quartz lighting, especially with the runway lights, is as kind of know the homeowners with the older bulbs, they start dim as the lifespan's getting towards the end of the light, and you have different. So a brand new bulb is going to look really bright, next might be a little dimmer, and looks kind of a hodgepodge. LEDs are uniform, crisp lumen output till supposedly the entire lifespan.
So there's a safety component.
There's a safety component and a uniformity component. And it also should help differentiate the runway from the interstate a little bit better for pilots.
That's a
Been an
feature.
issue throughout the time.
It's a
Just close to that.
I hope you know that, but hey.
And then how long is the project take?
I believe the actual construction phase, this should be roughly the 90 to 100 days. Depending on the.
Good, that's good. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, that's exciting. That's a great project. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Next up is our Boca Raton Airport Authority enabling app. Update. Travis, or Scott, you're gonna.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. The only big update since the last board meeting was it did pass out of the Senate on the second to last day before session wrapped up. It's now been enrolled and is waiting to be transmitted to the governor, at which time he'll have 15 minutes to either sign. 15 days. 15 minutes would have been better, would have been quicker that way. But 15 days, I apologize. 15 days to either sign, veto, or will go into law without his signature. Once it goes into law, it will be effective. That's the effective date. It wouldn't necessarily be July 1st, but the legislature does have until July 1st to transmit all the bills to the governor. So unfortunately, we may be playing a waiting game here for the next 30 to 60 days or so. But our lobbyist, Chris Lyons, has met with the governor's office on several occasions to go over any concerns that they have. They haven't raised any concerns, so we are fairly confident that there shouldn't be any opposition once it is transmitted.
My understanding is it's passed unanimously of the House and the Senate.
Both the House and the Senate passed unanimous. It was one of approximately 310 bills that were passed during the session and need to be transmitted to the governor. So it might be a while before he gets down to the local bills and some of the consent dockets.
Randy?
Yeah, just what are gonna be, additional steps or, I guess more importantly, costs behind this with respect to transfer of the asset, et cetera? I'm guessing we're gonna have to bear most of that.
There will have to be a process that we need to discuss with legal for the act to effectuate the actual land transfer, the title. So there will probably be some instrument that is recorded between the state and the airport authority, transferring the title as per the new law. There will be some additional other expenses in terms of some of the compensation matters that's already been budgeted for. But I think, any major expenses would be related to that administrative process of effectuating the land transfer.
And then our economic impact report, we have to do
Yeah.
very minor.
Right.
Money, so I don't think there'd be any major cost of the transfer of the property.
So the legislation was written that it gave direction to the Board of Trustees regarding the transfer of title. And the Board of Trustees is administered by folks within DEP. And so if and when it is signed by the governor, my anticipation would be that we would communicate directly with DEP staff representing the BOT and figure out what real estate kind of due diligence they need with respect to surveys, and then drafting the instrument and, and talk about how the costs for those items would be associated between the parties. So that'll be the next step.
But we're not talking about millions. But
No.
thousands,
Right.
Based on what I saw of our economic impact report.
Just like any kind of real estate transaction, you've got costs associated with the homework of it. Yep, that would be my expectation.
Bob, would you? Okay, I don't think any actions required, so thank you, Scott, appreciate that very much. Okay, we'll get down to the end, authority board member requests and reports, so this is your chance, board members, any comments, questions, anything we missed? What we're looking at? Okay, public comment, have you received any public comment cards, Christine? Okay. Any other business, anybody have any other business to bring before?
There's an item on the regarding the board meeting for June.
Oh, yeah.
Refer to that.
Yeah, let's talk about the next meeting and see that here in the miscellaneous. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 21st at 5 p.m. Since a couple members, I think, or maybe more have conflicts with that. I'd like us to consider maybe moving that meeting back a week, to June.
Unless the governor signs this bill sooner than the end of June, we have to have a meeting in June. The available dates depend on your availability. We just need a week in order to publish the agenda and publish the
Look at your calendars and see if you.
I think want to look at 14th and 28th. Is that what you want to look at?
we had looked at the
I had actually thrown out the 30th because the 28th and 29th are work for me.
30th or
30th is a Friday.
Happy one.
Oh, could it be in the?
Yeah.
Because I'd love, yeah.
Earlier.
No, I just have, yeah.
I'm free the 30th, so it's up there.
Like that night.
I'm free.
Yeah, so,
The morning.
10 o'clock, maybe?
yeah, that works for me.
Gene,
I believe so.
10 a.m.
Gene. So,
You good?
Amy, yeah, say staff, yeah.
We're here.
We all awake by my retired plan, so you guys don't
I feel this is. Okay, we're looking at 10 a.m.
I hope to
Friday
beat you
the
one
30th.
day.
10 a.m. Friday.
That up.
Okay, you'll send out.
Yes, sir.
All right, so
Send
the
them
30th at 10 in the morning.
10 in the morning. Yes, maybe we'll have bagels,
Y'all gonna come in at the end.
bagels and a schmear.
All right. Bring bagels, I'll be here. I'll be here.
Bagels and drink. I've lost control.
But Dalton, he's bringing the bagels in.
Yeah.
Christine.
Lower East Side, right?
I'm looking for a motion to adjourn, not hearing it.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
All right. thanks
Did
all.
interest say when that sublease is gonna go expire?